Okay, so now bishop to g5 by Tal. He creates pressure on the knight, and this complete setup is known as Richter-Rauzer variation, which indicates that he's not here to play a quiet game. He wants blood. And now bishop to d7, queen to d2, and you can see what he is preparing for. And now Klaman decides to just exchange the knights with knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and he did this so that he can get relief from some typical Sicilian pressure. But guys, let me go back to the move queen to d2. Here the best move for black is to continue with h6, attacking the bishop. But what about bishop takes, g takes, and you can see black gets this damage structure. And I know white can take benefit of this by knight to f5. And here you can see this knight gets a much more active square, and obviously black can't play e6 due to the threat of knight takes d6. And you can see by all of this white is better, right? But guys, in reality it's not so easy. I mean, in this position, black can continue with the move queen to a5, creating more pressure to the knight. So to defend this, if let's suppose this knight goes back to center, now comes knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and now comes rook to c8. And you can see black has successfully taken control over the c file. So that's why castling to the queen side might be now risky, because this queen and this rook both are eyeing on this queen side. So let's suppose after seeing all of this, if white decides to develop the bishop to d3 so that he can castle this way. But guys, what about rook to g8? And you can see black successfully acquires the c and g files, which are very important for the white king. I mean, in both the cases, castling might not be safe for white, and you can see black will be better. Okay, so in the actual game, after queen takes d4, here black goes for queen to a5. He targets the bishop. And after all of this, you can see this double pawn structure which I mentioned earlier. But black also gets this open g file, you can see, for the rook. So that's why here Tal now decides to castle long. Okay, so now rook to c8, and in the next move you can see what is coming. And we already discussed this variation earlier, but guys, here's the thing. Yes, castling queenside is also not safe for white, but as we all know, Tal is Tal. He counters with the move f4, launching an attack in the center. Okay, so now Tal defends the pawn with the g3, and now for black f5 might be the best option so that he can get rid out of this double pawn structure, but instead he made a mistake by e6. And guys, humanly it looks solid because black is now controlling the d5 square and is also preparing to develop the dark square bishop. But guys, it also weakens the pawns on a pawn on d6 and f6, which can create some trouble for black in the future. And now Tal takes benefit of this. Firstly, he goes for bishop to h3, creating some pressure over e6 pawn, and also in the next move this rook is coming to e1, which makes the white center dominant. So that's why, to avoid all of this, Klaman decides to play queen to c5, asking for queen exchange so that it drops the white attack significantly, leaving black with the bishop pair. So that's why here Tal decides to bring this queen back to d2, because his whole position is based on dynamic play, and obviously exchanging the queens would be like taking the foot off the gas pedal. Now he just push b5, preparing for b4, and Tal just goes for rook to e1, and you can see what's coming. But before that, okay, so now since this knight is attacked, so Tal just goes back, and now black can either continue by pushing a5, or maybe queen to f2 is also possible, which attacks the h2 pawn. Basically this, which targets this bishop and this h2 pawn, and another move which is queen to f2, which targets on h2 pawn. And to defend this, let's suppose if knight to d4, queen takes d2 check, rook takes d2 a5, and you can see black has a solid pawn structure on the queen side and an open c file for the rook, which makes this position better for black. Okay, so in the actual game, after knight to e2, here black goes for queen to c4, and after that king to b1. He simply moves his king into the corner, getting off from the b5 from the open file and defending the a2 pawn. And as I said, it's better for white to just start pushing the a pawn, but instead he made a mistake by queen takes e4. And now you can see black is a pawn up, and in a classical game this is huge, but in Tal's world material exists to be sacrificed. By capturing on e4, black has cleared the e file for the rook, and now you can guess the next move which white can play in this position. And guys, the move is f5. And one thing is clear, that black cannot capture on f5 because of the rook on e file, which can pin the queen and the king, as you can see. So that's why, let's suppose if black tries to push the pawn further like e5, completely closing the center and hoping that now everything is alright. And now I just want you all to pause the video and try to find the next move which white can play in this position. And guys, in this position, white can go for this amazing move, knight to f4, taking benefit of this discover attack. And after this, queen goes back to c6, knight to d5, and you can see what's coming next. So to defend this, if bishop to g7, now comes knight takes b4, and now you can see white successfully recovers the pawn with a dominant position, whereas black king is still in its original square with this terrible pawn structure. Okay, so in the actual game, after queen to e4, let me go back. After queen takes e4, here Tal just goes for knight to d4. He gives a discover attack to the queen. And now you can see black can just defend this rook by rook to h8, but instead he goes for okay, so since this rook is attacked, so that's why rook to f8. And guys, this is the point where this game becomes interesting. Here Tal goes for this move, which is bishop to g4. And here we can see how genius Mikhail Tal was. The engine wants to start pushing these kingside pawns so that he can create more pressure on the black position. But in reality, this is a slow continuation, and basically the move bishop to g4 is a pure psychology over the board. Here Tal is bringing his bishop to h5 which is threatening to pile up on the f7 pawn and creating a suffocating net around the black king. He is not just calculating, he is creating a problem for his opponent. And guys, that's really amazing. Okay, so now basically queen to c7. Basically, here black created some pressure over the pawn on c2, and here the engine is recommending the move either to move the rook to second rank, so that he can defend this pawn on c2. But guys, Tal doesn't like this move, because let's suppose if rook to e2, now comes queen to c4, and in the next move black is going to launch an attack. And guys, that's the beauty of Tal. He knows all of this very well, and after queen to c7 he goes for a very amazing move, which is king to a1. And guys, as you can see, engine absolutely hates this move, calling it a mistake. But guys, in reality, Tal is doing something very deep. I mean, he's making his king absolutely bulletproof on a1. And now he's saying to his opponent, my king is safe now, what's your plan? And basically it's a psychological pause, shifting the burden of action onto black. And guys, now I am telling you something which I think you got, which comes in your mind when I was explaining this move. I know some of you might be thinking that we can push this pawn further. But why? So that we can place our dark square bishop on this f6 square, which is eyeing the king, right? But what if I tell you that Tal goes for the move king to e1 intentionally, because he wants black to push f5, which he actually does in the game, so that he can go for a god level move. And guys, if you want to find the move, just pause the video and try to find it by yourself. In this position, Tal sacrificed his bishop by bishop takes e5, because after e takes f5, and now you can see this e file is now opened, and white can now just double the rooks, and this is just winning, right? But no, that's not the idea. The idea is to sacrifice the rook by rook takes e7 check, completely opening the black king, because after king takes e7, now comes this check, which is rook to e1, and now the other you can see other rook also joins with a devastating tempo. And obviously you cannot defend this check by due to the threat of knight takes e6, taking benefit of this pinned pawn. So that's why now black is forced to play king to d8, and after that white can give a check. Okay, so here now queen to h6, attacking the rook, and obviously this rook can't go to e8 due to the threat of queen takes f6 check. And then you can see this is queen to e7 will be mate. And if let's suppose rook to f7, now queen to h8 check, bishop to e8, and finally queen takes e8 will be checkmate. So that's why after queen to h6, let me go back. Here black goes for queen to a5. He gives up the rook so that he can run. And guys, here white cannot capture. You can see, I know some of you might be thinking to capture this rook, but this is actually a big blunder because of king to c7 and now knight to b3. Okay, if you tries to attack this queen takes a2 check, king takes a2, rook takes f8, and now you can see this game is completely equal. So that's why after queen to a5, here Tal firstly goes for knight to b3. He targets the queen first, and after this queen goes to d5, and now finally he captures the rook. And in this position, the final move by Tal is queen to c4 check, and in this position, Konstantin Klaman resigned because after queen to c6, simply queen takes e6. And yup, that's all. What an amazing killer game by Tal. Like this video and I will see you in the next one. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.